Hey everybody, Dan here with Pain Free You. Today's topic is going to be this. It's really important. Their story is not your story. So we'll get to that in a minute. If you would, relax your body. Fill your lungs up. Breathe in something good that you want. Exhale the bad that you don't want. Breathe in the clarity and exhale the doubt. Breathe in the strength. Exhale the weakness. So, their story is not your story. What I mean by that is this. Lots of times throughout the years I've been paying attention to this stuff, I've had stories from people saying, I heard about somebody else's symptoms, and then the next thing I knew, I started getting those symptoms. Their story is not your story. And so I just really want to kind of confirm this or speak about this topic, because fear is driving all of this. So if you hear somebody else's story and you go, oh my God, I hope I don't get that, fear. Fear is a signal to the brain that says there's something dangerous going on, and typically symptoms are the result. And symptoms can be contagious. There's a cool book called The Expectation Effect. And in it, they talk about how there is something called social contagion, which is basically how if a bunch of people think they're going to get sick from one person on campus that had this sickness, even though the thing that person had was not a contagious disease, other people start getting the symptoms. So this is a real phenomenon that happens. So if it's ever happened to you, you're not crazy. It's how the human brain works. It might be something along the lines of mirror neurons. You know, somebody smiles, you smile back. But social contagion goes a little bit deeper, and it all ties into the expectation. If I hear a story about somebody else's symptoms, I'm going to get it. You're now expecting symptoms to be contagious, which is, consciously, it's kind of ridiculous, but subconsciously, it makes perfect sense. Perceived danger is what's driving this ship. Perceived danger is what turns on various symptoms or pains. So what I really want to do is just get extremely, extremely clear that it doesn't have to be this way. If you hear somebody's story, the best thing to do then is not jump into, oh no, I hope I don't get that. The best thing to do there is go, wow, that's fascinating. I feel bad for them, but that's never going to happen to me because I expect that I'm not going to catch these symptoms from somebody else. It's not a contagious infectious disease, but the fear is sometimes contagious. The fear can be infectious. And so it's really clear, it's really important for you to be clear with yourself that their story is not my story. And I don't need to catch these symptoms just because I heard them, right? And I know that sometimes happens in the group setting, but it doesn't have to be. Now, why is this important? Because building resilience is part of the recovery process. Building clarity and certainty and confidence is part of the recovery process. And so if you are going to, I'll say, be fearful of other people's stories, you're just perpetuating more danger. And I'm not saying it's your fault, and I'm not placing any blame, but it is a lack of accurate thinking that is causing this, right? If you think hearing a story is dangerous to me, you're fueling the perceived danger. If you hear another story and you say, wow, that's fascinating, I feel for that person, but that's never going to happen to me. I'm not worried about that. Right? It's important to be clear that their story is not your story. I'm trying to think if there's any way to expound on this idea. Not too much, so let me just restate it. Their story is not your story. If you hear a story that says, oh my goodness, and let's say by chance you start to get those symptoms, what's the best response? Oh my goodness, I can never hear stories again. No, that's just more fear. Or if you notice yourself coming down with a symptom that you just heard about or read about or saw online or whatever it may be, and you start to notice that symptom, nip it in the bud. Cut it. Nip it in the bud. Say, oh, brain. No, that's their story, not my story. This is not going to happen to me. I'm not concerned about this whatsoever. Yeah, it doesn't sound pleasant, but I'm really not going to come down with this. Nip it in the bud. If you start to notice a new symptom that's based on a story you heard, nip it in the bud. Brain, no. We're not doing this. This does not have to be my story. It's their story. And it's a sad story, and it's, they're dealing with similar types of things as me, but I don't have to get their symptoms. And so, brain, I'm not concerned about this. Kind of chuckle at how ridiculous it is. No, by the way, if that happens, 1,000% proof that your brain is creating the symptoms that you're dealing with. So, I hope that makes sense. Their story is not your story. Their story is not my story. And if you're going to have somebody else's story be contagious, listen to the success stories. And don't be fearful of them talking about their journey and what they went through, because their story doesn't have to be your story. So, hope this makes sense. Try to build some resilience for hearing other people's stories and being completely unconcerned by that. Because if you hear things and you start noticing symptoms and that freaks you out, what's that going to do? It's going to cause you to put your fingers in your ears and say, I can never hear a story again, which puts you in even a more vulnerable situation. And it creates more fear, more perceived danger, which is not the direction we want to go. So we want to be super clear. I can hear somebody else's story without catching those symptoms. And if you start to do that, nip it in the bud and be very clear with yourself, with your brain. Hey, brain, we're not playing this. We're not playing that game. I am not catching symptoms from somebody else. As a matter of fact, we're going to turn ours down too. Not only are we not going to get other people's symptoms, but we don't need the symptoms we currently have. So let's turn that all off because I'm actually okay, right? That's when we go from here. Intellectual knowledge about how this stuff works, that it applies to us. There's a solution, you're on it, and you're capable of it. Take it from here to here, from knowledge to wisdom. And again, their story, it's not your story. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Hope everybody's doing great. Love you guys and gals, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care.